All right, we are back. So the power kept flickering in and out. That shit won't happen no more. I got us on solar, so the internet will not cut out again. All right. I hate that, man. That's the only bad thing about living way out in the woods. When that power flickers, it's a wrap. So we moved it over to solar power. We'll try that. Hey, eyes open. How you doing? I've never done a live just off straight solar power. So, oh, it's all good. The power's back on actually, but it's still storming. I put it on solar and we'll just ride with it. Yeah, no doubt. Copper top.
And
No doubt.
so started my career there. So been at it for about 40 years.
These guys here, the professional corner, and the other guy that's going to be testifying in this is that Joe Barron or whoever. I guess he's some kind of lawyer, and they're going over to Charlie stuff. I haven't seen this yet, but it is a very, very long interview. I'm sure that we're not going to make it all the way through it today. It's 4 hours. We'll watch a little bit of it today, and then next time we'll watch some more of it.
I guess.
Quick question on that too, because it's something I mess up all the time. But people, all of us out here, like we'll interchange terms like medical examiner and coroner, which I think is totally understandable. But if there is like some,
everybody has to admit this has been one of the strangest cases as far as like what happened with Charlie Kirk that I'd ever seen. And I've said it before, and I'll say it to the day I die. This just reminds me of the JFK stuff. And nobody should be taken out for their thoughts and them expressing their opinion, especially when they're not lying. They're not spreading no misinformation. Y'all seen him. He was reciting a fucking Bible.
Sort of difference between the two. How would you define that?
Absolutely, dude.
Yeah. So typically coroners are
at least a 3,500 watt though. You're pissing in the wind with anything less than that, and anything over a 6,500 watts, you're just throwing money out the window as far as gas.
Are elected. All right. And even in Louisiana, where I started my career, the coroners there are elected, but by state law, you have to be an MD in order to run for coroner. Whereas in other places, there are other states where you can have as little education as a GED to run for the office. It's one of the oldest offices that falls under the umbrella of British common law. It's actually mentioned in the Magna Carta. It's like one of 4 words that you can actually sheriff, bailiff, coroner, and there's one other I can't remember, but you can actually see it in like the 27th paragraph. Medical examiners, though, are physicians, and typically they're board certified forensic pathologist. And so if you look at their background, you got to go to medical school. Obviously, that's 4 years. Then if you get a pathology residency, that's 5 years. So that's anatomical and clinical. Then if you want to become a forensic pathologist, you have to do an additional year of a forensic fellowship. And there's probably 24, I think, in the nation. We had one in Atlanta. We took 2 students per year, one international, one national. And it's rigorous training. It's like one of the few jobs you can get in medicine where the more education and training you get, the less money you make. Because at the end of the day, if you're a forensic pathologist, unless you become a private consultant, you're going to be a bureaucrat. So that's what it comes down to.
So there's a lot of bureaucrats out there too in different offices across the country who probably don't do as good a job maybe because of the qualifications.
Yeah. That would be, I think that would be a reasonable statement. And there's not a lot of them. There's just not a lot of forensic pathologists that are out there. Not many.
Could you imagine being,
you can be around the country
like that?
And they're not going to go to like the small rural areas of the country because there's not enough cases. So, the state I live in, like, the bodies literally from where I am, they have to be transported 2.5 hours to get to a forensic pathologist for those autopsies to be conducted. Yeah. So
that's the one thing I wish I'd have done. A buddy of mine tried to get me to. He's like, dude, you got all that land. You need to plant some fruit trees. And I was like, I ain't fucking with that. I wish I would have. Because I've been here long enough Shit, I've been on this one piece of property like 23 years. They would have, they'd be bearing fruit right now.
There's probably more neurosurgeons really out there. I'm sure there are.
Grapevines, all that shit.
Most people have no idea they can get ready to post content the minute they stop recording with Riverside.
Then forensic pathologist, yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's start right at the beginning of the case, obviously, where Charlie is assassinated and he gets hit with something, which is up for a lot of debate. So, Baron, you and I had a chance to go into some of this yesterday in what will be the previous episode. But what the state has said is that a German Mauser rifle that belonged to Tyler Robinson's grandfather, is what they allege, shot Charlie Kirk with a 30-06 from the rooftop, 138 yards away. And according to what they say, the bullet did not exit. It hit him here.
Now think about that for a minute. That's a football field and a half, or roughly a football field and a half. That's a long shot, man.
Carotid.
Then for the one saying, "Oh, I could do that untrained," bullshit, man. Bullshit. You're taking a human life.
Jugular, and what's the other one?
The external jugular.
Okay.
Any of the structures, bony structures.
So it hit him there. Obviously, we also.
Bro, that motherfucker was silly for that. I can't believe he pushed so hard for that shit. And fucking why? It makes no fucking sense. Other than he's just trying to push for his AI cartoons. It's fucking crazy, man.
We lost a lot of blood. But what were your biggest issues with that part as far as what we've heard from the state at this point, where you have a lot of open questions?
Well, I think
he's all SS too, all super spreader. You know, it's against the law. It's against the law for a motherfucker being infected with something and not tell you. You know that?
You know, it wasn't initially a question of mine until the YouTubers who are the sniper experts and the Green Berets and all the gun experts, they're getting out there and they're like, well, let's recreate the shot. And they get ballistics gel and they get dummies and they get cows and pigs and ham hocks and legs and thighs and thigh bones and femurs. And they keep taking this shot over and over and over. And I watched hundreds or thousands of rounds go through this. And nobody can replicate the shot. Nobody can get it to stop at all inside of anything. They'll put, 16, 18, 20 inches of muscle and tissue and fat and bone and steel plates and concrete cinder block.
Yeah, and I keep saying the same fucking thing with this dude, man. If them were self-loaded rounds, it could have had less powder in there. And it sounded like Grandpa was a badass. So Grandpa probably did load his own rounds.
And I mean, they just stack stuff up and they cannot get the shot to stop.
For a decent rifle and a scope, I can freehand 100 yards with my AR with a red dot. Yeah, but that's with a red dot, bro. You're talking about an old German Mauser. I don't know. I mean, they have muddied this case so fucking bad. Who knows what happened anymore, right? Can we all agree with that?
Inside of it. And so you look and as I'm watching it, I'm thinking, man, maybe he wasn't shot with a 30-06. Maybe it was another gun from another location. Maybe it was, Chris Martinson had come along at this point. We talked about this yesterday. Mm-hmm. Martinson saying maybe it was a lower caliber round from a different angle. Because if you look at where it entered the
one thing I will say, these two were talking, this dude here and the young kid were talking, and some of the shit that they said, I was just like, what? They have mishandled this fucking case poorly, man. And when it comes to a high caliber case like this, you have to do everything by the numbers, because people are looking and people are wanting to fucking discredit what you're saying. They're looking for it. Public opinion is that kid didn't do it.
The neck, it was kind of the left side of the neck, well left of the Adam's apple, and it was at a 9-degree angle. And if you trace that 9-degree, and Martinson did a good job. He put up a slice of a neck and he showed an arrow going right through it, and it's nowhere near the vertebra. It's well to the left of it. And so you just put it all together and you start looking at it and you say, this is, if it was rare, that's one thing. If 1 out of 1,000 shots that these guys were trying to replicate could have stopped inside of something, or 100 or 10 of them or some number greater than 0, you start to look at it and say, hey, maybe this was just a really rare occurrence. And at the time, we didn't know what kind of round it was. We didn't know if it was hand loaded. We didn't know if it was frangible. We didn't know if it was a softball.
That's the first time I've heard anybody say anything about a hand loaded round.
It was a Full Metal Jacket. We didn't know what the grain was. We know all that now. They showed us the box of rounds.
Oh, it was. See now, now Slayback said, what do you call it? A keyhole? He said because the bullet started turning end over end, so it was almost like it hit him sideways. And that could have been too, but man,
came out of, or they told us the box of rounds that it came out of. We got to see the spent casing that it came out of, and so now we know a little more about it.
Yeah, but
and I think it's even less.
I would like to know if that spent round had a replaced primer in it, because if it did, then it's hand loaded, and it would mean something. But who knows?
Likely that. You could come up with a scenario intellectually and you could say, yeah, but bullets do weird things and they dump a lot of energy and that energy disperses inside a living human. You can go through that scenario, but if you can't ever replicate it, you can never redo it. I mean, science is replication. If you can't replicate something, it's not science, it's a guess.
I think it's weird that all these fucks that kept hashtagging Charlie Kirk through everything are just weird fuckers, right? It's okay to have an opinion about shit. But when something major happens and you just start hashtagging that shit, trying to get people to come to your channel and shit, when you never talked about anything like that ever, that's a fucking grifter.
It's a hypothesis. The science is being able to say, here, let's reproduce it. And it's irreproducible as far as I'm concerned. It can't be reproduced. And so if there's some theoretical basis upon which you could mathematically explain that it might be able to happen, I'm willing to accept it. And I told you yesterday, I'm open to the fact that Tyler Robinson shot him with a 30-06. I just find it increasingly more unlikely with every additional piece of evidence that comes out.
Ever woken up and immediately needed a nicotine pouch or a energy drink? That much can cause hustle do it. We just stay in a complete game. Which probably neuroscience gives you a clean plant and afternoons. This is good flavor, mental clarity, ultra diet. Do you think if you had to forget the rest of the case and who it was, just pretend it wasn't Charlie Kirk, it was any kind of case where we saw someone shot from this far away and what obviously happened with a lack of exit wound. If you had to go into court and prove that a 30-06
it's out a rifle barrel, right? So it throws it out like a spiral of a football. That's what I didn't understand, because it looked weird. Like Copper Top was saying, that wound, shit, it looked like it was an inch tall and a quarter-inch wide. It looked weird.
I guess that would be from the prosecution side. You believe that you would have an extremely difficult case in front of you to do that and convince a jury that happened.
Yeah, because jurors are not required to leave their common sense at the door. Mm-hmm. And in fact, in an opening, and a good defense lawyer will tell them that in the opening, you can't bring in any fact-based knowledge about this case. The only thing you're allowed to learn about this case is going to come from that witness stand and what the judge tells you can consider. And if the judge says you cannot consider something, you are not permitted to consider it. But at the same time, you're not required to unpack all the comments.
My question is, I guess, Nickel G, is would it be like normal for it to fucking tumble at 135, 140 yards? Would it be normal for it? That doesn't seem like that would be long enough distance. Now, if it was a handgun, now I've seen handguns do weird shit because a lot of them don't have the same energy as a high-powered rifle.
Sense, all your lived experiences, put them in a suitcase, put them by the courtroom door, walk in, make a determination, pick it back up and leave on your way out. You're allowed to consider your lived experiences. This is Utah. It's a rural place. It is these people are not unfamiliar with firearms. They're just not unfamiliar with firearms.
You're not either. You fire a lot in your life.
I shoot and am a fan. And it's
the power went out again.
It's just inconceivable to me that you'll catch 12 people on a jury who all 12 will go, yeah, okay, that makes sense. And not just makes sense, not that just possible. Again, the standard is reasonable doubt,
right?
Almost absolutely certain. A reasonable person could not disagree with this outcome on any one of these elements, including that it was a 30-06. And I think that's a very, very steep burden considering. Now, you're going to be able to pay an expert to come in and say it's possible. Right?
Yeah, you can pay any expert.
And I say this as someone who's hired a lot of experts. It's not unlike most professions. You're paying them for a service.
Yes,
what do you need me to say? Okay,
talking
I'll be
about
happy.
Joe, yeah, the guy with the solar panels and all. Yeah, and they found it mysterious. I really wasn't going to talk on that because I don't know too much about it, but me and Amanda was actually speaking to one another on the way home, and she was asking who he was, and I just find it funny. He was going to release some shit about power and technology had been buried, and all of a sudden, boom. Yeah. I watched him too.
I can come up with a mathematical scenario where that's possible. I can tell you examples of how it might have happened. I can, experts are allowed to hypothesize. So I can tell you a way in which it might happen. Well, the defense is going to go find somebody who's going to say impossible, not possible. And so this is ultimately going to come down to a battle of the experts. You're going to have an expert from the prosecution side. You're going to have an expert from the defense side. And you're going to have a jury of 12 decide which expert they like better on that issue. Mm-hmm. But they're also going to have their lived experiences. They're going to have their common sense. If you've ever fired a 30-06, you know that sound. It's different from a 308. It's different from a 223. It's a deep, big, powerful sound. It's a huge round. It's like firing a cannon. And if you've ever shot something with a 30-06, you're immediately going to say, no, I don't believe it. You're going to have a really powerful expert from the prosecution to overcome that lived experience.
Joseph, if we didn't have a video of it, because obviously most cases you went to in your life, it's not like you had a video of the shot happening.
No, I wish I had. Yeah.
Right. That would have made it easier.
No kidding.
But without even the video, so starting with just looking at it, if you got to the scene, let's say same scenario, the body was taken off the scene, obviously, because they had tried to do life-saving measures, and you were able to get witnesses there to describe what had happened, what would be the number one questions you'd be asking them about what they would have observed on the body so that you could make a determination or some hypothesis on what might have killed him?
Well, I think from the perspective of, and this is to the exclusion of not having a video is what we're saying here.
Right.
So, right. So I think that probably, from my perspective, just talking to people and not having videography and not having a body to see at the scene in place. My big question, first off, I always ask about sound. And that's one of the common things that we go, what did you hear? Sight is one thing, but what did you hear? And then you consider the dynamics of this environment that this place is in, because where he was perched is down in a hole, essentially. And they're saying that this round was fired from an elevated position. Well, sound can be deceiving, and we've seen this played out over and over and over. I've seen it played out, on the street, relative to cases that we might work, because you don't know what the point of origin is, but you want to get as many perspectives as you can relative to this.
Yeah,
right now,
the thing that everybody keeps arguing with me about, though, is MLK. They keep saying that Martin Luther King was done that way and it didn't have an exit wound. But I find it hard to believe unless these rounds were hand-packed and it had less grains in them.
Have this huge collection of people that were
that's
there,
what I was
right?
thinking, Justin. That's exactly what I was thinking. And with less grain in it, it could have made it keyhole like that. But nobody's even tried to replicate that. Everybody's went with store-bought ammo and went out there and shot through everything. Get to talking, old motherfucker.
Right. And how many direct statements did they take at that moment in time? So I would personally start with sound. What did you hear it? At what point in time did you hear it? And then what did you see? Where were you standing when you saw this? How far away were you when you saw this? And what was your initial response? Because people will say they heard something and then they didn't follow the rest. They didn't follow the rest of what's being played out before them. They'll turn away, they'll duck. You'll have all this kind of dynamic environment. You can actually see it in the video. You'll see people, kind of reacting like this. And then, so you're going to have multiple POVs on this as well. And again, this particular case is separate from anything I've ever worked like this, like where even if I had a huge collection of people, biggest collection of people I've ever had that actually witnessed a shooting was under 100 people. They're saying thousands, maybe 3,000. I'm not really sure, that were there that day. So that many witnesses, that many eyes on this situation, I'm very curious as to what these statements are going to be like.
Little sidebar here. I don't know if this will be helpful. If it's not, just ignore it. But
I don't know neither, Drummer. That's the question I keep asking is, did Grandpa, because it was Grandpa's rifle, right? Grandpa was the one that was in the war. I'm wondering if he had reloaded them rounds. Yeah, MLK was a completely different air. Also may have been a factory shell. Yeah, see, that's a good point too, Skip.
You were on the scene of the Richard Jewell case, which was a bombing,
right,
in 1996 at the Atlanta Olympics.
Right.
Okay, so that's not a gunshot; it's a bombing. But the same kind of questions that you're wondering right there with what is in this case a gunshot, were you asking?
And we had videography with that too.
You did?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You can see the explosion. Jack Mack and the Heart Attack were playing. There was a concert, and the actual single fatality that we had, who was a school teacher from South Georgia. She was standing there.
I thought it had a wooden stock on it, and it had a low slung scope on it. Because we watched a video where they said that exact rifle, you couldn't even load it for the scope that was on it because the bolt is on that side and it would hit the scope.
Adjacent to,
let me see if I can find a picture
like a bronze statue. And if she had been standing 1 foot to the left when that thing detonated, she would have lived, but she caught a sheet metal screw in her eye and went into her brainstem. So yeah, we had videography of that. Of course, it wasn't the quality that these things rise to today, but I mean, can you imagine? Plus, you had a lot of injured people there.
Right.
We were very fortunate that night.
But you were asking similar questions about the dynamics and everything, because they're obviously ducking for cover.
Yep.
The same situation.
Yep.
Okay. What about the kinetic energy? You and I had talked about this in episode 448, and there's a lot of debate on that. But if you fire any gun, let's just start with that, center mass, obviously, you're hitting it where it can most kind of explode across and actually have the energy evenly distribute. If you fire it off mass, it might behave a little differently. I don't know. To me, it still is very suspect that there wouldn't be an exit wound or anything like that. But would it be possible for a 30-06 to not exit, in your opinion, if it doesn't hit center mass and actually hits on this side where there's more arteries and I don't know.
Yeah, softer tissue is what you're referring to.
Yeah.
And, because you are left of the midline. Now, I can say definitively that I see a defect appear and blood appears, or what appears to be blood, right, appears from that defect.
So if this is the gun, let me share this right here. If this is what they're saying this is, Tyler Robinson's alleged recognized family rifle. See that scope? That bolt won't go back far enough, is what they're saying. Oh, hell. That's not it. Why they would even load that up, I have no fucking idea. But in this photo, it's too hard to tell if this is a fucking you can't really tell. And I don't know how to make it any bigger. Yeah, I can't make it any bigger, but anyways, you can't tell if it's wood or what it is. I mean, it does look like it's a newer stock maybe, but it's hard to tell.
In the neck.
What appears to be blood?
It is weird.
Yeah,
it is very
I
weird.
wasn't there. I can't say definitively that is blood, right?
I thought he was going with the Charlie Still Alive thing.
Yeah, I was getting real Epstein body vibes.
If you want to get your ass into a sling with an attorney on stand, unless you can test the blood you say that you see and confirm that it is blood, like with a Kastle-Meyer test at the scene, it ain't blood. You can say it appears to be blood. So it appears to be blood that
very
issues.
lawyerly of you.
Thank you. I've been burned enough. So you you see the defect appear, right? And then you see what appears to be blood exiting forth.
Yeah, we watched a video though with a scope like that mounted on one of them old rifles, and you can't load the gun. The bolt hits the back of the scope. It won't. There's no way to eject the shell because you have to come back and up. You know what I mean, with that bolt, and there's just no way without it being modified. Now it could have been modified. I don't know, but I was just led to that. That's what Slayback had told me and said, on
that location.
Yes.
And it is soft tissue. So if you'd had a midline impact, say where you're going through, you're going through the trachea, for instance, where it enters right here, and you've got this cartilaginous body in here, that would slow it a bit more, I think. All right. Okay. It would diminish some of the velocity. Right?
And what do you mean by that? Because it's a firmer structure,
it's a firmer
and
structure.
It can begin to distribute all that force.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But you're still going to have, in my opinion, you're still going to have this kinetic reaction, right, to the soft tissue where you'll see this kind of travel out. Now, of course, we haven't seen all the video, I don't think. I've got that one view where he struck, and I can't really make out a tremendous amount of detail relative to that as to how the skin reacts, however, or the tissue. I see the shirt. I see the shirt billow. And for me, automatically, everything that we learn in ballistics and terminal ballistics, you're going to have this kinetic delivery. And so when you see this kind of billow like this, as we kind of see like this, for me, immediately when I saw that, I knew that was the delivery of that energy from that round into the neck. And then, of course, there's been, and one of my big questions is, and I don't know if we talked about this, and one of the things that's troubling to me about this case is I want to know where the shirt is. I've got to know where that shirt is.
What would the shirt tell you?
Oh, it's going to tell me a lot. It's going to tell me a lot. And this is why, if we have the shirt, any other kind of speculative things that are out there, any kind of other terminal instrument that may have been used, because it's, guys, I got to tell you, forensics is not just merely confirmatory in the sense of finding a positive finding. Forensics is also about negative findings as well. Is there an absence of something? So let's just say, for the sake of saying, that we've got an explosive device. Okay. Well, the explosive device that might be utilized in an event like this, that the propellant that you would see, say, for instance, with a 30-06 round that's contained in the casing that drives that round downrange, it's not going to be the same as, say, something that you use as some kind of shaped charge on a mic or something like that. So what we would do with the shirt, and I hope that they saved it. I truly do. I don't know because I've seen, guys, I can't tell you how many times I've seen things thrown into garbage cans, shirts that are cut up the middle when they're doing heroic measures, things being ripped off, and then you don't get the shirt or any other item of clothing, and you're looking for particulate matter that might go back to something. Okay.
Is it more common to keep the clothing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
50%, 80%, 100%?
Yeah. Most, to the point, like, and I'm just kind of, I don't want to go too far off in the, weeds with this.
We can go off in the weeds.
Well, no. What I'm saying is that we have tried to make a real effort with emergency room staff now in the days. And this is why, because if a person rolls in and they're being treated, right, many times, nurses always have scissors, so they'll take their scissors off, and cut it, and the next thing you know, the custodian is gathering up all of the, the red bags with the bloody trash in it, and they're putting it in the dumpster. I've done dumpster dives behind Grady Hospital in Atlanta, behind Charity Hospital in New Orleans, looking for one single item like that, because it's a key. And I hope that they secured every stitch of clothing he had, because, again, going back to the point, it's as important to rule things out as it is to rule things in, because you're trying to stay in the middle with the science itself.
So 2 things on that. One, is there a procedure? Is that like a standard procedure? Save all the clothes?
Yeah. And
I mean, is that well known across the board?
Absolutely.
Timpanogos Hospital would have known.
Absolutely.
Yeah, not state to state. It's the same across the board.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And I can't speak to necessarily what their procedures would have been at this facility, but they have enough trauma cases, I would imagine, that have come in over the years. There should have been a police officer that was there, that was being directed by a detective or the investigators. It could be a state ME investigator that was stationed in that area. I don't know how they're distributed around the state. You know, somebody like in my former position, I'm going to track down the charge nurse that's running that code. I'm going to talk to the emergency room physician. Where are his clothes? Where are his clothes? And even in a case like this, where I've got an individual that, you know, first sight, you're seeing them shot from a distance. I don't give two hoots in hell. I'm bagging their hands. I'm going to bag their hands just in case there is anything there, you know, because you can't just merely assume. You talked about just a moment ago, what if we didn't have CCTV? What if it was just done? I don't know what anybody saw. I don't know I wasn't there. So I'm going to bag the hands so that I can do any kind of sampling at the emergency, not at the emergency room, back at the ME's office, where I can collect anything, any kind of GSR that might be on the hands, rule it in, rule it out. I don't know. You know, I have no idea. I wasn't there. That should have been collected.
No, they didn't. And then when I watched them on the Sean Ryan show, bro, they passed the blame on to everybody else. And, you know, when I heard him saying that, I thought to myself, dude, that is your high price target. That is your value target. Did Charlie get a fucking refund? Because you didn't do your job, man. Regardless, it is your job to check your roots. Y'all know that shit. But I just kind of thought to myself, man, that shit was crazy.
Shirt in particular should have been collected, tested. I want to look at the collar. People have talked about microphones and all these sorts of things. Wherever a mic is positioned,
it was right.
Yeah, I want to know. I want to know.
Right clavicle.
What is going on with that particular area? Because if anything, and I mean anything, initiated right there, you're going to have residue.
So, second thing on the shirt, you said it's pretty standard across the board.
It is.
They know.
Yeah.
So, what likelihood is it? In other words, in your experience, how often do you see the shirts not kept?
More so now than in the past.
You see them not kept more now?
No, I see them more kept now than in the past, where you would just, because some people that are just working, you got the medical staff that's there, they're going on to the next case. And I know we're talking about Charlie here, but there's other people coming in to be treated, right? And so they're going from case to case, and it all depends on what the caseload is like that particular day. That's why it's so important that you want
exploding mic and all that shit.
To have law enforcement
and to keep tagging Charlie's name in every video. That's fucking crazy. People are going to tune into you anyway. You don't have to keep tagging them people.
Representatives that are there that are tuned in, because once they have called the code, once they have said this is done and pronounced death, and pronouncement of death is different than time of death. All right. Just so you guys understand.
Can you explain that?
Yeah. Pronouncement of death is a legalese term. That's the official time. I declare you dead. Time of death is a scientific finding. That's why we do rigor mortis and livor mortis and algor mortis and stomach contents and all that stuff. So they're two different things, and people conflate those things all the time. Anyway, so once he has been declared dead, we know that this is a homicide, or we suspect that it's a homicide. That body is now your central piece of evidence, and it should be protected at all costs.
Including all the things that came
everything.
And so maybe final question on the shirt.
Yeah.
Can you quantify it in a percentage basis of how often the shirt is preserved or not preserved?
I could.
Like, how unusual is it? That
I'll put it to you this way. I think in my own perception, when I first started in the field back when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I would say
you're only 87.
Only 87.
I mean, you look great.
Still dragging my stumps across the ground.
That's right.
So I would say probably back in the day, it may have been a 50-50 proposition as to whether you're not going to get it. I'd say that number has probably come up, hopefully, to just above 80% now. And some people look at it that are civilians that don't do, forensics, that are working as someone in an emergency room. They might not necessarily see the value in it. We see the value. We try to see the value in everything that comes in with a body. Everything has a purpose. Everything has, value to it for us, because we have to have as much sample as we can to test it.
How would it now, Baron? You said that the injury map was all the way from down here.
It was from the top of his heart to the top of his head.
And what'd you say was on his head?
In the parietal lobe. I'm way outside of my depth here, but there was some sort of damage above that, between his skull and that region of his brain.
Okay, so we'll come back to that.
Yeah, please.
That's important.
Sure.
But staying with the shirt for a second. So, i.e., the shirt is the most critical piece of clothing, just based on where the injuries all occurred.
For me, it would be, and again, going to this idea of exclusion, one of the questions is that will be asked and has to be answered in court when that forensic pathologist gets up on the stand. They're going to look at that autopsy report, and if that this is in fact a gunfire related death, all right, the attorney is going to ask a question that is similar to this. So, Dr. Smith, whatever the doctor's name is,
Guajardo.
What, in your opinion, what was the range of fire on this round? Okay, your assessment.
The range of fire.
Yeah. So he's going to say it's indeterminate. That means you can't tell, right? You cannot tell how far away this round was fired based upon the examination of a defect. Okay. All right. The bullet hole itself.
You've heard me talk about my dad and the wall he hit in his 50s with his energy. Suddenly, the same workouts he had always been doing lost their edge. His recovery sucked, and he woke up feeling.
Okay. So this is how it works. If someone, and you'll have variable numbers that come along with this. So they'll say something like, well, if it's a press contact, close contact, you're going to have very tight deposition of unburned powder. Okay.
Unburned powder.
Anything that comes out of the muzzle is going to tattoo the skin. It'll, like this, and it'll kind of surround that area. All right. Unburned powder, you can get smoke, you can get all kinds of stuff.
And that could be from different things.
Yeah. And we're talking about a close range, round like this. And then the further you move away, it's like the best way to describe it so that folks really understand, it's like having a water hose with a nozzle on it. So as you move further and further away, the spray kind of distributes like that. Okay. Mm-hmm. And based upon the number that you can come up with, the kind of the diameter of the deposition of the powder and all of that stuff, you get an idea of range. That's how they determine range of fire with a firearm.
All right. So here's one that I wanted you to see.
We're going to be covering is the position of the safety and how it functions, and if he actually could have taken a shot in the first place at all, which is very important. And then we're also going to cover the fact that a lot of people, including myself, thought that the New York Times images released on the 11th and the 12th of September of 2025 were actually stock images and not the actual rifle itself. Well, it turns out it appears to be. Hit that like and let's get into it. This is the post on X that got me looking into this again. And this is from Paramount Tactical, Gary Melton.
Oh, shit. What the hell did I do?
Cocaine.
Not cocaine.
Meth.
Damn, sorry, smart mouth.
Today, we're going to revisit the Mauser M98 model itself. Well, it turns out it appears to be. Hit that like and let's get into it. This is the post on X that got me looking into this again. And this is from Paramount Tactical, Gary Melton. Love him or hate him, this is good information. So he's asking, are you going to correct the record, Ian Carroll? NY Post, NY Post, not New York Times is what I was saying. The NY Post published a specific photo of the bolt action rifle recovered near the scene. It was not a generic stock photo. So like I said, I was under the impression this entire time, even in a few videos I did probably 4 or 5 months ago, that this was just a stock photo. It says, you pushed this claim for months and doubled down by falsely saying NYP admitted it was stock imagery. Corrected. Okay, so that's where this all started. He's basically calling people out. So as he scrolls down here, this is from NY Post. The bolt action rifle recovered near the scene of where Kirk was shot.
Bro,
so according to NY Post and other sources that we'll look at here in a minute,
I don't know how the fuck I'd act, be honest with you. It's been a long time.
The evidence box, and this is the exact rifle that was alleged to be used by Tyler Robinson for his alleged shooting of Charlie Kirk. So we're going to look more at this here in a second because there's some details about this that are very important. And then we have this other post. This was from Project Constitution. And I think he was one of the original ones that came out talking about the position of the safety and those type of things. But he's saying in response to Barron, who's asking more questions about it, but also Gary, he's saying to answer your question, yes or no, that is not the actual gun in the NY Post photo. Now, based on going back to the NY Post from the 11th and the 12th, it does appear that there's some evidence that it is, in fact, the gun. So they released a stock photo of a generic Remington Mauser 700 or Mauser 125th anniversary model with the background edited out. As we can see here in this photo, it is not edited out. You see the grass. You can see at least two different flashlights. This is probably from the officers or the FBI who were searching for this. And then you can see that it's in an evidence box. There is nothing edited out that I can see here. And then coming back, he's saying on a Mauser 98, the alleged murder weapon, when the safety is all the way left, the rifle is completely
It's good to know you're taking safety precautions, bro.
disabled.
I'm proud.
Bolt locked, trigger blocked. To fire it, that tall metal wing safety has to rotate a full 180 degrees over the top of the bolt and click into the right position. All right, now this is false, and we're going to look at why it's false. We're actually going to look at diagrams in the manual itself. But remember, he's saying to the left is locked, to the right, you can fire. Okay. So I think part of the reason why he thinks that is because of this original Mauser 98 wing safety operating arc. So it's saying if this little flap here, you can see this little safety. If this safety is to the left, this diagram is saying that it's safe, it's locked. If it's to the right, it's saying that you can fire. Okay. There's a lot of problems with this that we're going to look at here in a second, but I think this is confusing a lot of people. So while the general idea is correct, that one direction, you flip it one way and it can fire, you flip it the other way and it's locked, is correct. This is the exact opposite of the directions it's supposed to be. Now, how do I know that? Well, let's look at the actual manual. FN Mauser Model 98 Carbine Operator's Manual. This was the original for the original gun, right? Now, just to be clear, there's a lot of modifications you can do to this gun, and we're going to look at some that could negate this entire argument. But we're going to look at some more stuff that also shows that it's probably the actual rifle. And we're going to look at other ways that possibly the safety could have been used, even though it was a low profile scope. But jumping back in over here, it says to put on safe, turn the safety to the right. Okay. This is for that Model 98 Mauser. So to put it in safe, you have to go to the right. Now let's go back and look at this diagram that is shown on Project Constitution's post. So as you can see here, according to this diagram that's being shared around, it's saying safety is to the left, firing is to the right. That is the exact opposite of what the manual says. The manual says turn the safety to the right if you want to put it in safe, okay? And then it says to disengage the safety, turn the safety to the left. So the left side is disengaged, the right side is engaged. So when that wing safety is to the left, then you can actually operate the bolt and fire the gun. You can actually move the trigger. If it's to the right, you can't do either. And again, this is the official FN Mauser Model 98 rifle operator's manual. All right, now we're going to see here really quick. This is another Mauser manual. And you can see it says right is safe and locked. So it's positioned to the right. And center means that it's locked, meaning you can't pull the trigger, but you can still operate the bolt. And then if it's full left, that releases a bolt and the ability to pull the trigger. And in that case, you can fire the gun. This is Jared AF. He is an accomplished ex-military as well as a highly advanced shooter. And he's talking about the three manual positions here as well. And I think it's very important that we look at multiple examples of this because you're going to see there could be some variation.
A Mauser rifle will typically come with one of these three-position flag-style safeties. And if you don't know what they are, how they work, they're actually pretty simple and pretty handy in my opinion. So with the safety all the way in the right-hand position, this locks the bolt into the receiver and also disables the trigger. With the safety in the middle position, the trigger is still disabled, but it allows you to run the action. And last but not least, by moving the safety all the way to the left-hand position, that is your fire position, at which point you can pull the trigger and take your shot.
So you saw it again there. He says if it's to the right, everything's disabled, the bolt and the trigger. You put it in the center, which is where the scope would be on a low-mounted scope. Then you can move the bolt, but you still can't shoot. And if you move it all the way to the left on these Mausers, then you can freely fire. It unlocks the bolt and the trigger. And just for completeness, this is directly from a manufacturer. So you can see here they're showing you can freely move it when it's to the left. You put it in the center. You cannot pull the trigger, but you can move the bolt. And if you flip it all the way to the right, then that locks the bolt and the trigger. Okay, so same thing we just saw from the other video. And if any of you guys spend any time watching firearm stuff at all, you're going to see Hickok 45. He's going to show you what he has to do before he can fire this gun. Watch very closely.
45 here. Let's load this German Mauser and shoot it.
Flips it left so he can shoot.
Man, that thing is loud.
Okay, so you can see very clearly that flipping to the left from all these examples, flipping to the left, you can fire it. Flipping to the right is completely locked. Even in the center position, it still locks the trigger and you cannot fire. And of course, these firearms are very commonly sporterized. So we're going to see what you can do with the safeties that could change this a little bit, but then we're going to look at the actual picture and zoom in and see what kind of safety we think he has on it. So in this example here, this is an aftermarket low profile safety, and this safety does not need to flip all the way right or all the way left. It stays on the left side of the gun, and then if you flip it to the up position, that's locking it, and you flip it down, and then it fires like regular. And note how that military safety looks. It's a little bit longer, has a little dip in the middle, and it's kind of a squared off rectangular shape, okay? That's going to be important here in a minute.
Yeah,
it goes on.
Now, in
it
the
does
stock
that.
photo that I'm looking at, this gun is on safety, but the law enforcement could have done that.
So you saw those two positions. So flipped up, that's safety. Flip down, that's fire. Now remember with the military one, you had to flip it all the way to the right to have a safety. Middle was still trigger safety, and you had to flip it left to turn it off and make it fire. So as you can see here, even with the low profile scope, like we see on the alleged weapon for Tyler Robinson, you can still get an aftermarket safety that bypasses the need to have to flip it past that scope each time. I don't think that's the case with that particular weapon, but I'm going to look at one more other variation just to give you an idea of what you can do with these. This right here is an aftermarket safety, and you can see it's on the side. So instead of having to flip from the right side to the middle and back to the left side, this one's all done on the right side. And the previous one we saw flipped up and down just on the left side. So you can certainly get around a low profile scope issue with these guns if you want to with aftermarket parts. So you can see it's 3 positions. And you can clearly see if there's a scope above it, you can still easily operate it. All right, so what have I shown on this alleged weapon for Tyler Robinson?
You're right about that now. I'm no gun expert. All I can do is go by off what they're showing us and use common sense.
Robinson, this Mauser M98 model, it looks like you can have the traditional safety, which has to go to the right to lock it, the middle to lock the trigger only, and then to the left to fire, okay? And then you see these aftermarket modifications you can do where you can have it just on the left side or the right side, and you can operate it freely even with a low profile scope in the middle. But now we're going to look at the actual gun itself that he was allegedly using, and we're going to see what we think based on the different safeties we've seen, what style it is, and we're going to look and see what position it's in. So really quick, let's just revisit the Project Constitution actual rifle itself. Well, it turns out
it's hard to trust a man with no fucking eyebrows. You know what I mean? This dude shaves his eyebrows, so.
Only, and then to the left to fire, okay? And then you see these after, even with a low profile, and we're going to see what we think. Just revisit the Project Constitution post. It says to fire it, that tall metal wing safety has to rotate 180 degrees over the top of the bolt and click into the right position. Well, we've shown in like 7 or 8 different ways that it has to be to the left to fire, right? Because if it's in the right position, not only is it going to block the trigger, but it's also going to prevent the bolt from being moved at all, in which case you can't even load it. Okay.
Oh, does he?
So that's
My
one thing
bad.
that's very
I
important
thought he
here.
was shaving.
Now, what he's also saying is it's physically
I thought he was shaving it, Nikki. I'm sorry. Tell him I said I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Mr. Clean.
possible the safety flake smashes straight into the bottom of the scope's ocular bell. So let's look at that.
But somebody's
Always
done
gonna
a
make me feel bad,
sporter job on her,
Nikki.
and the gun's in the shop for a low scope safety. So they've mounted a scope, they got a low bolt handle, all well and good, but they got the military safety, which isn't conducive to our scope, obviously.
So as you can see here, with this low profile scope and this wing safety to the left, this gun can fire and operate the bolt freely. In this case, they cannot put this on safe for this M98 Mauser rifle. So he's saying, which makes sense, because of this wing having to flip up and to the right to put on safety, it's going to hit the scope. But that is the exact opposite of what is being said here. It says to fire it, it has to move to the right. So now that might just be a small oversight. So, we're not going to take anything away for that. So he's saying when the safety is all the way left, the rifle is disabled. Okay. Now we know that's false. It's actually when it's to the right, it's disabled. And then he says to fire it, you have to go to the right. That's false. You have to go to the left. And again, we'll reinforce that with the owner's manual. To the right, safe and locked. To the left, fire. And then again, in another official manual, turn the safety to the right to put it in safe. And to disengage the safety, turn the safety to the left. I know I'm really driving this point home, but this is important. And then we have Jane Doe, She says, Tyler Robinson's rifle in July, we will know. She goes back and forth with people when they have fun online. But Paramount Tactical is right again. All information we have here available points to it being Tyler Robinson's rifle. We have two descriptions from the NY Post stating it's the rifle. They say the gun allegedly used by Robinson to kill Kirk. Robinson reportedly used this rifle to fatally shoot Kirk at a Campus Utah event. And then she says there's two exhibits, 10-2 and 10-3, that say rifle in the box. And she says in a recent defense filing, they do not request photos of the rifle be classified as protected, which means they should be shown to media and the public. So let's look through this. So one thing first, we have 10-2 and 10-3, photo of rifle in box. Okay. Those were from 12/9/2025. I guess that's the date it was disclosed. But the photo of the rifle in the box being the important piece, because that would be this evidence box here. Okay. So I think that's the connection that she's saying. And then moving on to the next thing, we have more rifle photos and a photo of the rifle in the bushes, which is where they supposedly found it originally before it was put into the box. And then it shows here, Robinson reportedly used this rifle to fatally shoot Kirk at a campus event in Utah, obtained by NY Post. So this is not a stock photo, according to them. It's
so hard to see anything on that rifle, though. And is it just me, or does it look like there's something tied around the trigger?
Actual legitimate firearm in a FBI evidence box or the police evidence box. You see a couple of flashlights. You see the grass where they say they found it. They did two posts, one on the 11th and one on the 12th of September 2025. The second post, the gun allegedly used by Robinson to kill Kirk, again obtained by NY Post. And it's the same exact image. According to all the sources that I can find now, it appears that is, in fact, the rifle. That's the alleged rifle used by Tyler Robinson, the alleged rifle that his father or grandfather recognized. So if that's all true, then based on all the knowledge we've seen all the way up to this point about these safeties and modifications and things you can do, what can we take away from this? The first thing that's very clear is it does not have the factory default wooden stock. And if this is wood, it'd be painted black. It would still be an aftermarket change. And in this case, it does look like it's synthetic, some kind of composite plastic. And you can see it doesn't go all the way to the end of the barrel like the other versions did. And in a lot of these, which were sporterized, they changed out the barrel for 30-06. So all of that would match with everything they've said so far. Now, the really important piece of this, I think, now that I know that this is the rifle, as you can see, the scope is very low profile. So if we zoom in, remember, we have all those different kinds of safeties. So what does this look like from here? It's very hard to tell. If I scoot back a little bit, it looks a little bit more obvious. But this, to me, based on what I can see, without using any AI to enhance this or anything like that, this does look like the actual military wing safety. This looks a lot like that wing safety that we saw in the other videos and images. So if that's the case, what does that mean? If the wing safety is on the right, that means you cannot either open the bolt or pull the trigger. So if that's the case, if this is the traditional military wing safety, and this scope was not removed and put back on by the FBI or by Tyler Robinson while he was running away during that short period of time, then that means that this weapon could not have been loaded or fired. This looks bad if this is legit, right? And I think that's what Project Constitution was getting at in his posts, even though he had it flipped around backwards. So with it flipped to the right, you cannot open this to put a cartridge in the chamber, and you cannot pull the trigger. So this gun, as it sits right now in this supposedly official post from the NY Post of the official FBI picture of this gun, if this is a military safety, which it looks like it is, this is kind of blurry, right? So there's a small chance this could be some other kind of safety. But as far as I can see, it looks like this safety goes up and over and not side to side like the other ones. And we'll look at them again just to compare. But this to the right means this cannot be open and the trigger cannot be pulled, which means Tyler Robinson could not have used this firearm.
And that's the type of shit right there that makes everybody question what the fuck's going on.
Most homicides that occur, it's in a more secluded place, a lot of them, or at the very least, it's not in front of 2,000 people.
Yeah, you don't have an audience.
You don't have an audience like that. So in this case, you have a public event, a major speaker, chaos immediately ensuing. So naturally, there's going to be some things that are not treated perfectly well right away just because of the cascading effect of so many people there. That said, once his body, and I'll come back to that video with carrying to the truck thief in a little bit, but once his body is taken out of there and people begin to disperse a little bit and leave, let's start with the video that we have, Deef, of the camera guy removing the camera SD cards that were behind Charlie right here. Is this the kind of situation where there should be cops trained to be way closer to the perimeter, number one, and number two, not letting anyone get into a space like this?
In an ideal world, yeah. But if you're talking about campus police that are there that have limited manpower, I would imagine at this point, and Baron, correct me, please, if I'm wrong here. I'm assuming that there are no other law enforcement assets around this area other than campus police.
So not exactly. The guy in the blue shirt in the background, and there's another guy in a red hat that keeps ducking in and out.
Yep.
Those are officers from other agencies that were playing
this guy back there in the far back.
Right. Yeah. So for them, they understand at this point. Now I'm thinking about crowd control and all this stuff. Like your boy that just walked into frame there, that's pouring water over the back of his neck or whatever the hell he was doing. Mm-hmm. He doesn't need to be in that space, period.
And I don't know whether he's law enforcement. I know for a fact the other two are.
This is 9 minutes later, by the way.
He doesn't need to be there, period.
Yeah.
That guy nobody needs to be within that area because here's the thing about crime scenes, and we teach this over and over again. You can always set your perimeter up at a very distal point, all the way around, right? You can, first off, you can do that. And then you can contract it where you're bringing it back to center. However,
so get back.
As far, you want as many people away and you're going to cordon that entire area off. When you run into trouble is when you only focus on that. And you set your tape up or whatever it is, you create this boundary in that little area. Well, as an attorney, if I go back and I move that tape, guess what happens? You can say, well, this was not controlled out here.
That's right.
This has been contaminated, at this point in time. So you always start big and then you contract after that.
So even though they weren't UVU police, the fact that they're plainclothes officers carrying badges and guns, they know that this crime scene should be sort of sacrosanct in this moment.
Yeah, I teach at the State Police Academy in Alabama. That's basic training for academy graduates that if they're post-certified police officers in the state of Utah, which I'm assuming they are, they know that that's a critical area right there. You don't want to let anybody into that area specifically.
But even though he's an employee,
those people up on that amphitheater area.
Funny, from what I understand, something else that's funny is from what I understand is they never showed the FBI the back footage from what happened.
In the back.
in the back, and I'm just throwing this out there just for consideration, in an ideal world, and again, giving them a little bit of grace because they ain't got a lot of manpower. All right. I think that we can all acknowledge that. Okay. Because there's some things that are just, it's not possible to facilitate. However, the stands up there, you see,
and who is this?
I don't care if you left your
right
book
here
bag,
said,
your
wait
phone.
a minute now. I came to see a show and I ain't fucking leaving. This one motherfucker just sitting there chilling. Like, what's happening? I'm gonna watch all of it.
Whatever it is, you ain't getting back in there. Period. Because I don't know what value any of that stuff. Nobody knows what value it has at that critical moment in time.
Right.
You're pushing everybody back. You're locking it down, and you're going to keep it locked down. And
so you think having an employee milling around the area, the immediate adjacent area, in Terrell Farms was his name, but you think that falls below the standard?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
Yeah, they should. You get out of here unless he is a principal witness at that point in time and they need to speak with him. He still shouldn't be right there. You come here. You stand right here. Do not move from the spot.
Yeah. Don't
walk around. Don't pour water. Don't pour water on the surface, please.
Of the crime scene.
I beg you. That's a no-go.
Yeah.
So you don't want to, because you're introducing something into this now, and understand how I'm using this word. This is a pristine crime scene at this point in time, or should be. It's pristine in the sense that it's untouched at this point. It has not been processed. You want to take any element that you possibly can away from this. It's going to impact how any of the structures are set up or were left behind or whatever the case might be.
Well, I'll proffer that the guy walking around talking to those two cops grabbed the chair, set it up under the camera, took the cameras down, moved them, set them on the table, removed some object from it. We believe it's the SD card. That's his story. Removes something from the camera and then walks off. Does that fall below the standard to allow that to happen?
Can I play that on a loop? Yeah,
I just wanted that on the record.
Yeah, that's on the record. Oh, Lord.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were hiding something. Why would you take the fucking SD out of the thing? If that was my buddy or my employer that had just got done that way, I would want the cops to have every bit of evidence they fucking had. They could. That shit just doesn't make no sense, man. That shit's wild.
Below the standard. Yeah.
Is there if you were the responding official on this scene and you got here right now, this is 9 minutes afterwards, and it's still somewhat pristine minus Waterboy over there. Once you begin to examine all the things you just walked us through, the chair, the ceiling, the canopy above him, the splatter, the area around it, and let's say someone also shows you the video. So you've now seen that and you know the shot came from up there. As you are looking out from the vantage point of Charlie, what are you most looking?
I think it was real, but I think that there's some underlying circumstances that made shit look really, really weird. Like, in my opinion, I think him and Erica were on the outs. Why did she show up and wait an hour on the fucking tarmac while her husband was in the hospital? Nobody could stop me from getting to my loved one. I sure wouldn't wait on another woman, and I would hope Amanda wouldn't wait on another man. And then, even if she did, you have to find it weird that they used two different doors to go into the hospital so they wouldn't be seen together. It just little shit like that, little shit like that.
Looking for at that time, like what are the key elements that you want to take note of to try to solve where this may have come from?
I'm going to start concentrically and then work eccentrically. So I'm going to look at I'm going to look at those things in my immediate area and then extend out my field of vision incrementally. And again, in a perfect world, if I were like the sole guy that was there, I'd be saying, send every post-certified officer that you have available to my location. We've got to lock this thing down. Matter of fact, if there is currently a police academy class in session with cadets, send them out here. We'll direct them to set up a perimeter and face outward and don't let anybody through.
Was there ever a point where something like that happened too late, 40 minutes later or something like that?
They did establish a pretty good perimeter around the top of the amphitheater, like the last concrete step.
That's a great spot to have it.
But it was 20 plus minutes.
So,
after.
Yeah. Well, again, going to playing devil, I don't know if I'm playing devil's advocate. It's just practicality. I've been out on cases before where, I'm sorry guys, there's some kind of cord or something here. There we go.
You good?
Hope I didn't unplug anything. Where we didn't have the ability, to cover and nobody anticipates. You can go through all of the, through all of the emergency management stuff that they send you through, where you have critical events and you have mass casualty events, and you can, tabletop it. It's what they call, you go in and you tabletop all this stuff, but until it actually happens, you don't know how it's going to, how can you plan for this scenario? Well, you always try to plan for the very worst that you possibly can. It's almost like, containment, where you can always contract it. But if you ain't got the warm bodies, you ain't got the warm bodies.
Do you consider the SUV they took him out in as a crime scene?
Probably.
Is there valuable information you could glean from accessing that SUV?
Now you're just guessing.
Again, back to Kennedy, it's not the same as a Kennedy limousine because that's where a violent act took place. It has value to me in that if I'm a law enforcement or crime scene person, I don't know any of these people in his group. I don't know them. And if I'm, working the scene, if I'm involved in this, my name's going on the report, I'd want to hold on to it until, let me see the vehicle. What did you do? What did you do? What did you do? Where were you seated? Where were you seated? What did you say? What were your actions? Did you remove anything? Is there anything we should be looking for in here? Now's the time to tell me right now, because I don't want to get this thing and find something on the floor that you didn't tell us about. So there's a come to Jesus moment, where you're talking to everybody, tell us what you did. And then it's at that point in time that they can either choose to retain it or, release it. But I'd have to, there's going to be photos taken. There's going to be photos taken of the scene to document it. If they cut it loose and send it back to from whence it came at that point in time, you document. You're never going to go wrong if you document everything.
Yeah. So we mentioned the necklace you thought should have been retained. What about that lapel mic he was wearing?
Yes, lapel mic.
Should be in evidence?
Anything on his body.
Okay.
It's a corpus delicti, man. I mean, it's the body of the crime. It is, how in the hell they don't have that mic, I don't know. And why they don't have that necklace, I don't know. I need it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for your loss. I need it.
I mean, they're $100. Go buy another one.
I couldn't remember. I couldn't remember yesterday. Was it Parkland you were talking about, where the jury got to go back and visit and they had preserved the area? So
Parkland High School, not Parkland Hospital.
Right. Yeah.
But
Oh, that's funny. That's that's a little.
It is, isn't it? Wow.
Wow.
Yeah. No, yeah.
It's not 33 years later, at least, but still.
No, yeah. And look, guys, I know, again, back to practicality here. Okay. Parkland High School.
Right.
For those that don't remember, please look it up, because it was a huge, just tragic event, mass killing in that school. That's a standalone structure where those events in that place were contained. Okay. You ask anybody that works in forensics crime scene, most of them are going to say, I'd take, 10 indoor scenes as opposed to one outdoor scene, because outdoor scenes are almost impossible to secure for a protracted period of time. But with Parkland, going back to that, and again, Idaho comes in here too, because I've had my detractors on this. I don't really care, because, with Idaho, I was so averse to them tearing down
Coburger.
How long did they leave it up before they tore it down?
couple months, I think, right?
Yeah, a few months, and the university bought it, and it was hurting people's feelings. So they had to take it down even before the thing had gone to trial.
He's upset about 2 months or 3 months, though, as opposed to 2 days.
You know, they paved over the crime scene here in 5 days, right?
Yeah, that would really.
Does that fall below the standard?
Ask and answered. Yeah. Actually, for me, and again, we can get into this. I have an idea as to how they probably documented the scene out there.
How would they do it?
Well, I think that's probably a Pharaoh system.
I don't care to ever see that footage again. I can't believe it stayed on the internet as long as it did. Appreciate you stopping in, Drummer.
FARO is going to be in play here, which is a device that has been used with great success. It's, whereas in the past we would have taken hundreds of, images, right, from various perspectives. You just kind of follow the compass and you take macro and intermediate range, and you take micro and all
Nobody
sorts of things.
should want to see that.
We can't even begin to touch as mere mortals what a Pharaoh system can do. Thousands and thousands of images. You've got this thing that's set up on a stand. It's spinning. It's got a mirror that's spinning in an opposite direction. And it's just snapping perspectives all over the place. Just voluminous.
Do you think they
the state would have had that technology? Yeah, I think that every state police agency has that technology now, and you'd be surprised. There you go. You'd be surprised how quickly they can document. They can pull trajectories with this. This now, we used to use years ago. They used to use something called Total Station, and Total Station, it kind of arose out of the need to document motor vehicle accidents, actually, and because it's so dynamic, right? And you want all. Pharaoh now is a game changer relative to documenting the scene and all the different perspectives. For instance, if you've one of the examples that's cited, for instance, is that you can take like a trajectory rod. If you have a bullet hole in a wall and it's got these, you can take the trajectory rod and it's got these two balls on it, right? You insert it into the wall, right, where the defect and bullet defect is. This thing's taking pictures. It's pulling trajectories from all these different perspectives all over the place, and it turns it into this huge 3D model, so that when you take this thing into court, you're kind of looking
you're
around,
there,
right?
Yeah.
So going back to the chair, the chair's not in place,
right?
Don't know where the chair is. Platform's gone, or it's been altered in some way. And if you have to go back out and do something else, and you've taken, just so I get this figure right, I don't want to misspeak, 10 inches of soil.
That's what I hear. 8 to 10 is the generally
and then
accepted.
You're going to pave over or put pavers down.
And then put big planters on top of the pavers.
Yeah.
So you've changed the topography of the surface.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you used the term topography there, because people don't appreciate the role.
Right.
Like if you're out in your yard, most people don't think about, they look at their lawn, they might think it's flat. It's really not.
Right.
It's,
Sure.
It's rolling, it really is. And the slightest little, and plus when you're talking about pulling a trajectory on a shot that is allegedly at this distance, the slightest deviation from that at all is going to skew your data. So I hope that they got this out there. One other thing, I apologize. I don't mean to be all over board. You guys kind of got my wheels turning here.
That's good.
No. I'm just, if I could go back to, and we haven't, well, I guess we kind of have, but when you think about the dimensions of Charlie Kirk as a person, right? So I'm talking about physical dimensions.
Right.
So if he's in a seated position, one of the measurements I'm going to want at autopsy is I'm going to want from the top of his head, from the crown, all the way down to his buttocks. Okay, so we think about how we're positioned in chairs right now, right? Well, this is our height right now, right? Our height is not as we're standing now.
Right.
Our height is this position. So yeah, exactly. And then I have to account for these metal legs. Also, how much do you weigh? So, and if you look at that chair is not like,
it's got a little flex.
It does. So it's not tubular. I guess it's tubular. I don't really know how to describe it. That's not my bailiwick, but the chair is going to bend some. So I'm going to want to try to understand that as well.
And you're saying like a 1/10 of a degree could put someone 20 feet higher in the air or lower or something?
Yeah. I'm not a sailor, but if you've got a compass that's not, if you're off 1 degree, you're going to wind up 1,000 miles in another direction. That's an over the top example, but you know what I'm saying?
It's actually even, I would say when you're taking into account a bullet and how far it could have been coming from, it's even more of a degree of difference because you're also trying to account for where it hit them, how it hit them, whether.
Look at the shit in Pennsylvania. They were saying somebody was on top of that fucking water tower. They're absolutely right. I don't know, man. I really don't know, but I find it kind of fucking. We're gonna watch the rest of this next time, but I don't know, man. It's not good. I'll tell you that. And I feel bad. I still feel bad for Erica, even though people are dragging the shit out of her. And I don't think she should have fucking monetized his death. I'll tell you that. That looked very, very suspicious to me. And to anybody normal, hold on, man, do these damn shorts. I hate them Velcro shorts. But her monetizing Charlie's death, I thought was fucking out there. Nobody should do that. I mean, they put him in an arena for God's sakes. Sold tickets. It's just disgusting, man. Well, y'all, I'm fixing to get off here. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. I'm starting to get hungry my damn self. Maybe we'll see y'all tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good night. And stock the fuck up. If you don't do anything else, man, stock up on food and stuff right now. I'm telling you, I think it's going to get deathly dangerous out there. This time next year, if we're not in a depression, we'll be very lucky. And I may be wrong, and I hope that I am. But I've been screaming this for 2 years now. People ain't paying attention. All right, y'all. Peace. Have a good night.